Hello everybody, welcome back to Sophisticakes by Mary. For this video, I'm going to show you how I made this cable knit sweater cake using fondant and fondant silicone molds. Now I know not everybody likes fondant, but I do plan on doing a version using buttercream and different tips. And that will be in an upcoming video. But for this one, I thought we'd start with the fondant version. So stick around and we'll get right to it. So I started off with an already pre-crumb coated 6-inch, 2 layers 6-inch, and a 3 or 4, I think it's 3-layer 7-inch cake. Now I start with them pre-crumb coated because you've seen me do this 100 times if you have been watching me for a while. And you can see how I do that in previous videos, and also I will be doing that again. I'm sure I will, but it's kind of a time saver. I can kind of get a head start on my cakes before starting to film because I have plenty of footage to show you besides that. So a crumb coat, if you don't know what a crumb coat is, it's when you do a thin layer of buttercream on the outside of your stacked cake to lock in those crumbs. And once you get that crumb coating on, go ahead and pop it in your refrigerator for 20 minutes or your freezer for 10 minutes, and then come back and apply your final coat as I am doing on this tier. Now I'm just using an offset spatula. Actually, no, I'm not. I lied. I used a piping bag to apply this buttercream, and I'm using my plastic scraper to smooth the excess off. Now, I'm going to go ahead and make the pom-poms, I guess you'd call them, for the sweater cake. I am actually using, this is a flower center mold that you would use that particular impression for probably sunflowers, the center of a sunflower, but I thought it would make a good little cheater head start on getting some texture on those balls. So I just rolled fondant balls and I pressed them into the mold using some cornstarch to prevent it from sticking. And I did extras just in case. Set those aside and let those firm up. In the meantime, go ahead and roll out a thinner piece of fondant to place on the top of your tiers. Now this is going to be the same technique on both. I go ahead and I place a piece on the top, turn it upside down using 2 different boards, and cut off that excess. I find that that's a good way to get a really nice piece of fondant on the top if you're going to be paneling. And just go ahead and smooth it all good and smooth with your fondant smoother, and kind of set those aside. And in the meantime, go ahead and make your sweater impressions. Now I have three different patterns. On the top tier, I'm going to use this pattern all the way around it, and then I'm going to embellish it with another impression. But I am using these, I can't remember where I got these. This might be a Marvelous Molds mold set, and I will try to find a link to attach so that you can find these if you'd like to purchase these yourself. They are very easy to use. Just roll out your fondant no thicker than the height of the side. So that way you can roll off your excess. You saw me use my fondant smoother just to kind of smooth off those edges, and you kind of use those edges as a cutting tool. And it removes the excess. And go ahead and remove them, and they lock right into each other, which is very handy. So I went ahead and started with my other cable knit pattern. I guess this is the cable knit. The other one's probably just knit. I don't know what they're technically called, so you just have to go with it with me here. We are rolling with it. So make sure that you rub into all of those nooks and crannies. If you want a good impression of the knit pattern, use your fingers and the palms of your hands to really press down and make sure you're getting all the details. Now I'm going to go ahead and apply this knit pattern onto the top tier before it firms up too much. Now I will go back and make some more of the cable knit pattern, but for now I needed to get these on so that it wouldn't crack when I was trying to put it onto the cake. And wouldn't you know it, this never happens. This never happens. It was actually exact fit that locked in. I didn't have to cut any extra pieces. Now I didn't cut the top off of that because I went ahead and put it in my refrigerator to set up so it's easier to cut. And in the meantime, I went ahead and made some more of the cable knit pattern. Now I'm just leveling out those sides, making sure they're nice and level, and removing any excess that might have squeezed out of the mold. Now I'm also making, this is for I don't know, you know how on your sleeves you have a cuff. I guess it would be kind of a cuff that I'm using. Just another texture, another pattern. This is a smaller weave. And this is a different mold. I am not sure where I got this mold. I will have to look that up where I got that mold because that is not the same brand. But just roll out your fondant and get some cornstarch on it and press that type of a mold on the top. And I just removed the excess from the top and the bottom. And I will show you in a minute here how I measured that. But I did need to go ahead and get the cable knit attached to the bottom tier before it also firmed up too much. Now it's firmed up just enough that I can lift it without it losing all of its shape. I would say maybe 15 minutes to 20 minutes before you can more easily transfer it. And they don't fit into each other in this pattern. They rest up against each other on this pattern, and it's a continuous pattern. And on this one, it did not measure up exactly right like the top, unfortunately. So I just laid the outside piece on top of the piece that I started with and cut off the excess and just kind of smooth the joins as much as you can there. Now this is cable knit. It's a fabric impression, so if it's not completely smooth, that's okay because it's full of texture. Now I'm just measuring how wide I need to have that cuff piece. And then I go back to my strip that I have the impression on, and I'm just marking that measurement and then lining up my ruler, my long yardstick across all of them and cutting off that excess piece. Now this yardstick has not been used on anything but cake. I just use a little water to put on the edge of the fondant on the top and then the edge on the bottom because there's already some shortening that I had put on the buttercream, just a thin coating of shortening to get the fondant to attach. So it's going to stick to that just fine, but this is just reinforcement and making sure that it sticks to the fondant. And I find the best way to do this is to roll it up on itself. So when you lift it onto the cake, to put it on the cake, you're not stretching it out. And I also went ahead and turned that cake upside down again using the same board that I had used before. It has cornstarch on the board, so it's not going to stick to your fondant. And just wrap it around and cut off the excess again. This is seriously just the easiest way to get a nice level top. And then turn it back over and remove that board. And I'm just using my fondant smoother to make sure that that bottom edge is as level as I can get it. And I like to mark in where I'm going to put my straws. So I happen to have that little jar or little container of shortening handy, and it was a little smaller than the next tier that was going to go on. So I just pressed into the fresher fondant to make an impression, put my straws in, measure them to size, put a little buttercream on there, and go ahead and lift your firmed up top tier. And remember, it's been sitting in the refrigerator getting firm, so I can just lift it up and place it on top. And I'm also able to cut down that fondant to be level with the top. Now don't use your hand like I did. I've just done this so many times that I know how to feel when I'm getting too close to my finger. But if this is your first time or even your 20th time, don't use your hand. Now I wanted to make a little accent on that top tier. I wanted a little bit of something else. So I went ahead and used the braided or twisted part of the cable net section in this mat, and I just rolled out a log of fondant and cut it down to the width and just place them inside that specific pattern. And they just meet up with each other. The pattern is continuous. Now I needed to make the strings for the pom-poms. So I just used another log of fondant and rolled it real thin. Make a long piece because you're going to fold it in half and twist it. So roll it out at least twice as long as you think you're going to need it before you fold it in half. And I'm using a little water there to get the pieces to stick together. And then just hold one end still and twist the other. And then you can also, once you get a start on it, you can roll in opposite directions with your hands. I just folded it in half. I don't know why I said half. Folded it in half, cut off the excess, and use a little water on the ends to keep them from unraveling while you're working with them. Just a little bit. Now I'm just using, I used a toothpick to attach it on the top, and I did remove that. But then I'm also using some water to get those strings to stick to the fondant, and then some toothpicks to get the balls to stick. Now when you're using things in your cake, I just need to clarify, when you're using things in your cake that are not edible, I think myself that it's fine as long as you're communicating that with your client and they are okay with it and they give you the go-ahead. And then just remind them when they come to pick it up, oh, by the way, remember, this is not edible. This part, you know, just keep an eye on it, remove it before you serve it. And then I added some extra texture on those puffs or pom-poms. I don't know, whatever you want to call them. And then use a little water on this little trim piece and get it to stick to the other piece of fondant. Now there's a lot of fondant on this cake, and I know that. That's why I'm going to do a buttercream version very soon here, because you are not stuck with fondant. You might not get as crisp of a look, but it will give you the impression. You'll get the idea that it is a sweater cake. So there you go, guys. My fondant sweater weather cake. I hope you like what you saw and that you can get something out of it that you can use. And if you did like it, please like, subscribe, and share, and comment, and interact, guys. I love to see what you have to say, and I love to keep in contact with you. So, I thank you for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks. Bye.